Good afternoon. My extra reading presentation is about Cleveland Heights cop Joe's gun on a man rushing to his pregnant wife. So this is about Mr. Samuel Taylor's encounter with Cleveland Heights officer William Robinson. So one morning when he was rushing to get home after he received a phone call from his wife that the baby was on the way. She was high risk of pregnancy. So he was driving 38 miles per hour in a 25 miles per hour zone. That's when Officer Robinson tried to stop him, from like 6 to 7 houses away from his home. So Mr. Taylor slowed down, turn on his hazard lights, but because there's no street parking because it was there's a lot of several cars parked, he decided just to drive straight and stop to his house. So that's when officer William the officer Robinson got out from his squad car and yells at Mr. Taylor to put his hands up, hold him on a gunpoint. So Mr. Taylor were telling him for 20 minutes. Mr. Taylor were explaining to Mr. Robinson that his wife his wife is in a high risk pregnancy and she's on labor, and if he can just check on his wife. So for 20 minutes, that's what he was trying to do, and he was also asking uh, the officer why he was being stopped, but he never got a reply back anything from the officer. So the officer Robinson decided to, he told Taylor to stay in the car, and the officer approached the house. That's when the wife opened the house and she was crying. Oh, I mean, she opened the door. She was crying, asking what's going on, and she's on labor and she needs she needs her husband. So at that point, Mr. Taylor was handed with a speeding ticket and a failure failure to yield for an emergency vehicle citation. So according to the Cleveland Heights city manager Tanisha Briley, that she believes that Officer Robinson acted appropriately and the officer followed CHPD protocol, and he conducted himself in a professional manner. In this kind of situation, I believe that the 10-5-2 safety rule with the combination of either universal greetings or the 9-step car stop are the best approach to this kind of situation so that it will not escalate. So at 10 feet, he can assess and survey the surroundings, make sure that it's safe for him to come closer to the subject or Mr. Taylor. And then at 5 feet, that's where he says his greetings, and then he can identify himself and his department, and he can tell his reason for the stop. And then fourth, he can ask the subject, or in this situation, Mr. Taylor, any justification for if there's any reason why he was driving fast. So by then, maybe Mr. Taylor can explain, which is he's trying to explain that his wife is pregnant and he needs to bring her to the hospital. Maybe at this point, the situation will not anymore escalate. But then, if there's no justification and the officer feels that he's safe, he can move 2 feet in distance. On 2 feet, then he can request the license, papers, cooperations, ask any clarifications, and then decide if he will just give warning and let go the driver or the subject, or give the citation, or maybe if the search and seize needed. Then after that, they can, the officer can appropriately close the encounter. So, three questions I have for this class is number one, if you were Mr. Taylor, what will you do in this kind of pressure situation? And then number two, do you think that the way Officer Robinson approached Mr. Taylor with a gunpoint is justifiable? And lastly, so do you agree with the Cleveland Heights city manager Tanisha Briley's statement that the Officer Robinsons acted appropriately and conducted himself in a professional manner? Why or why not? Have a good day. Bye.